We kept complaining about WWE music for years now. People, I want you to join me right here in this celebration. We, the Marks, we won. For the most part. We may not see Jim Johnson shredding again, but Def Rebel are possibly leaving the WWE. And we might even get music from mainstream artists. When I say mainstream artists, I think about this, but that's not what I mean, okay? I'm kinda picturing Edge, Triple H, Batista, you know? But we'll see.
We're getting closer to his return, and the closer we get to him, the faster things are going to happen. The faster the healings, the faster the deliverance, the faster...
Also on Greatness of Wrestling, WWE and 3-hour drama, Bron Breakker update, and a lot of news on Bad Blood. Welcome back to Greatness of Wrestling. Roll the intro.
I'm hurt and I'm old.
I'm coming hard.
Get perf. Farming is gambling.
Mama Rose!
Trash.
Daddy's back.
Go.
This is the shit.
Acknowledge me!
Heyo, how are you guys doing today? Like this video, subscribe if you already didn't. I hate asking for this, but YouTube algorithm and stuff like... I want 500,000 subscribers! Let's make that dream come true. I want to talk about WWE music. Pro Wrestling Nexus have reported that WWE is not looking to continue the relationship with Def Rebel going forwards. Once the contract with them expires, it is said WWE is scrapping them and will instead look towards using more mainstream artists in the future. Oh my god, that is music to my ears. That is music to my ears, ladies and gentlemen. Let's talk about that. So, we all know this relationship between WWE and Def Rebel was not necessarily very successful. For example, WWE tried 4 different Def Rebel remixes of Voices, and Orton basically responded with,
Stupid, 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 stupid.
I hear voices in my head. RKO. So look, I've heard some bad things about Def Rebel's personal shit, but that's not what I'm here to talk about. I'm not too familiar with it. And let's make one thing clear. I'm not celebrating somebody losing their jobs. But clearly, making WWE music wasn't for Def Rebel. And I'm also not talking about some indie artist. I mean, Def Rebel are pretty successful, right? I'm just saying making WWE music wasn't for them. They simply couldn't tell a story about a wrestler with their music. Jim Johnston wasn't great because he could come up with a catchy song or play guitar really well. He was great because his priority was to tell a story about a wrestler, about wrestler's gimmick with music. And that's pretty hard to nail in my opinion. In all fairness, Def Rebel did give us some bangers. And in a way, I do sympathize with them because at the end of the day, the WWE roster is massive. You have Raw, you have SmackDown, you have NXT. So in a way, I could definitely understand it wasn't the easiest job to come up with so many songs. That must be overwhelming. But then again, even the main eventers like the big talent on Raw and SmackDown, a lot of them didn't get good music too. Look how they massacred my girl.
Roll metal. Roll.
And then we play 5 different songs at the same time. It's ass. Now I like the sound of WWE using mainstream artists. Hear me out. Edge, Batista, Triple H, CM Punk, The Undertaker a couple of times. These worked so well. These are some of the greatest songs in WWE history, and I just miss vocals in wrestling songs, but maybe that's just me. Anyway, I feel like WWE lately, and that's my biggest problem, even though they're making so much money, more money than ever before, sometimes it feels like they're afraid to spend it. Music got so much worse, presentation in some ways, for example, less pyro, no more unique pay-per-view stages. They have more money than ever before, so I don't really like it when people are saying, well, it costs too much. You gotta understand, it costs so much money. They don't need to save the money. They literally don't need to save the money. I might need to save money. You might need to save up some money. Not WWE. So people, it sounds like great news. I want to celebrate, wiggling my Coco Jumbo naked. Yet at the same time, we don't know what's coming. It might be worse.
I'm coming.
WWE has announced it is shortening its flagship Raw program from 3 hours to 2 hours after 12 years. The change will come into force from October 7th until the show moves from the USA Network channel to Netflix in January 2025. So that sounds great in theory, but from what I understand, it's still gonna be 3 hours on Netflix. Per the Wrestling Observer, WWE is still in negotiations with USA Network to add a third hour to Friday night SmackDown. If true, and if I understand this correctly, WWE actually want this, which I find really surprising because Triple H actually said one time on Stone Cold Steve Austin's podcast that he feels like Raw being 3 hours is not a good idea. And now, it seems like they're actually chasing that shit. I get it, sponsors, money, whatever. I'm talking, from a viewer perspective. Look, it's something we asked for years, for so many years. Yet people right now are saying, well, I actually want Raw to stay 3 hours. I want SmackDown to be 3 hours. And in a way, that's great. It tells me that Triple H is doing a really good job if he convinced you that you want wrestling to be 3 hours long. My opinion though is less is more, especially with how much wrestling we have. And I'm only talking about WWE. We have Raw, NXT, SmackDown, then you have AEW, then you have TNA. You might say talent will get less exposure. Well, they have 3 brands. You don't need to see the same people every single week. One week you use Cody, next week you use Roman. You get what I'm trying to tell you. I think in a way, it's gonna be beneficial. Less exposure also means they're going to avoid overexposure. Also, less filler. Everything will matter. There's a lot of filler in the WWE. Sometimes it feels like watching a Netflix documentary where we have these 3-part series, and by the end you're like, you could have told that in 1 episode. It didn't need to be 3 hours long. Here's my take on it. By the end of a wrestling show, I'd rather leave wanting more than wait for it to end already.
I'm coming.
Let's talk about Bron Breakker. So he lost the Intercontinental Championship against Jey Uso, and this is what Meltzer had to say, so take with a grain of salt. Bron Breakker could be turning babyface soon after losing the Intercontinental title, says Dave Meltzer on Wrestling Observer Radio. I'm not sure if that's a good idea. I always compare him to Roman Reigns because that's how I see Bron Breakker. He's gonna be the next face of the company, most likely. In terms of fan acceptance, he's already ahead of Roman Reigns. People actually like Bron Breakker. It took a while for people to appreciate Roman. So he's already, in that way, ahead of Roman Reigns. You could turn him babyface, but should you really? Sure, people are barking for the dude. That or they just miss Titus O'Neil. Yeah, that's probably the case. But I still think it's a bit early. Being a heel for whatever reason in pro wrestling lets wrestlers get away with more, and it enhances their characters so much better. At this point, nobody is screaming for a Bron Breakker face turn. Why don't we just wait a little bit?
I'm coming.
Let's talk about Bad Blood. I think the paper is looking really good. Triple H said it's time to stop with the gimmick pay-per-views, and I appreciate that. No more TLC and stairs, no more Hell in a Cell. And take a look at this. Pro Wrestling Insider says that the stipulation with Dominic Mysterio hanging above the ring in a shark cage for the Liv Morgan vs. Rhea Ripley match at Bad Blood has been in the works for months and was not a late addition. This and a Hell in a Cell match on the same show, not a gimmick PLE, and it still makes sense. Love to see it. These matches needed these stipulations, and it's not because it's the name of the goddamn premium live event. Drew vs. Punk needs Hell in a Cell match because of the story, and given how much Dominic gets into Rhea's business, it makes sense that he's gonna be in a shark cage. 2 cages, 1 PLE, and it makes sense. Let me put it this way, the premium live event didn't ask for these matches, these storylines asked for these matches. When it comes to the shark cage though, always ends the same way, but I hope WWE are aware of that, and it's going to be different this time around. While they've heard the final decision has not been made, Pro Wrestling Insider says that some in WWE want Cody Rhodes and Roman Reigns versus the Bloodline to close Bad Blood, rather than CM Punk and Drew McIntyre's Hell in a Cell match. Look, I think both scenarios are okay. 2 big matches, Cody and Roman teaming up, it's a big deal. I wouldn't have a problem with it. It's a big story, right? But my biggest reason on why Drew McIntyre and CM Punk need to main event not gonna complain if they're not, but it's a Hell in a Cell match, and that would make the Cell look even more important. Make the Hell in a Cell match feel like a big deal again, and putting the match in the main event would definitely add just a little bit of that. Sure, the rivalry makes this match look important, but putting it in the main event, I think it would really benefit the Hell in a Cell match. Speaking of Hell in a Cell, Red Cage is gone, right? Right? Tell me it's gone. Oh my god. Well, anyway, people, that's all I got for you on greatness of wrestling. Thank you so much for watching this video. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. The Great One, peace, love, and hugs. It's been a pleasure.